What I'll try and do today is tell you guys sort of a little bit about our journey through business intelligence and Tableau and get into our implementation and everything like that. While we're going, I have to be social from a social company. So I have that hashtag that Tableau gave me, so it's Hootsuite data. So if you want to tweet me anything during this presentation, I can then respond to you later. If you want to ask me anything afterwards, we can do that too, but it's there if you want to use it. I guess I'll start talking about who I am. So there's a picture of me without a beard, but I wore the same shirt, so you can tell we're the same. Humor will be this bad for the rest of the presentation, just so you know. So anyways, my history. So I've been working in data management and business intelligence over the last 6 years. I used to work for a data management company that created energy trading management systems. So that was a very interesting industry. And then I transitioned over to Hootsuite in 2013 and joined their BI team when they were trying to implement a completely different tool than Tableau, which in this presentation I'll go into how we ripped out later. So that's funny. I was on the business intelligence team for over 2 years, and actually this past July I actually transitioned into a product manager role where I'm actually now on the website. So I get to own sort of how we're building out the website and tracking data and stuff. So I've gone from an implementer into a consumer. So sort of an interesting experience. So I've been able to enjoy it. What I'd like to do today in this presentation is I'm going to give you guys just a brief background of Hootsuite is, just so you have all the context you need to sort of understand some of our decisions and why we did certain things. I'll go over into more detail into the history of business intelligence. So you'll sort of get to see that story that we went through as we were doing it. And then I'll talk about making that switch to Tableau. What were the drivers? How did we do it? What were we looking for? And then sort of talk about how our first year has been. We actually implemented Tableau back in last August. So you guys get to see all the summary of that implementation as well. So first, I'll get some background on Hootsuite going. So what's Hootsuite? Other than this person in an Owly costume. We call him Owly. So Hootsuite in general is a software as a service-based suite of products for managing your social media accounts. So we got started with the basic social media dashboard. You can integrate your Twitter, your LinkedIn, your Facebook, and recently we just added full Instagram capabilities. And you can sort of manage it there. Actually, Tableau is one of our clients. They've been using it all day to sort of do a lot of tweeting and stuff, so that's always cool. We'd love to see that. And then, of course, our core products are web-based. You run them straight out of the browser, but we also have been expanding quite aggressively into the mobile side. So we have mobile apps for iPhone, iPad, Android, etc. We just released a new engagement app as well, I think 2 weeks ago. So as a business, we actually operate a freemium side business where we have sort of a free tier and then a paid tier. And then we also have an enterprise side of the business as well. So by the numbers, because I know we love numbers, we have over 10 million users to date right now. We're active in about over 175 countries. We're in use by 800 or more than 800 of the Fortune 1000, and we're considered to be the #1 social media platform. This is just an example of the dashboard for a company we invented called Bread and Coffee. So see, they get to manage their social. Don't worry, I'm not selling the whole presentation. But there's just a sample of what the dashboard looks like, and then a sample of just sort of the mobile suite, what that sort of looks like to sort of do engagement and scheduling and so on and so forth. So let's go now talking about Hootsuite as a company, where we went. So Hootsuite was actually founded in 2008 back in Vancouver, British Columbia, so just north of Seattle, actually. And if you look on the chart there, this is just our growth of employees over the last few years. So in 2008, it was 4 employees. By 2011, they're up to 20. And then we got our sort of first real seed round, and I think we hit about 1 million users that year. And then sort of everything went crazy. That's a lot of growth to go through a couple of years. And I joined, we're at that number 290 there in 2013. So when I joined, about 270 people were added to the company since the original people who were joined there in 2011 who had started the first BI tool there. So you can imagine just from all this, there's so much change going on. Along with that, of course, to keep up that growth, we had huge growth in our number of users. When I joined in 2013, we had over 5 million users. Today, we have well over 10 million users using the platform. And of course, as you add users and as you add people, you add lots of systems to go with it. Tons and tons of systems. So we have payment processing, CRM, ERP system, web analytics, mobile analytics, various databases and data systems on there, and surveying tools, just to give you an idea of all the data we have generating. And of course, when you have all these systems, you have all these things going on, BI was changing as well. So BI had to sort of go with all this growth. And we really got this started back in 2011. So when we had 20 people, we had just hired our first analyst, who I think was an intern at the time. And they were trying to figure out a good way. We have these users. We were just starting to monetize. How do we start getting some of this data going? So we adopted a BI tool at the time called RJ Metrics. Because we were 20 people and all of our engineering talent had to focus on the product, we had analysts who had to figure everything out. So RJ Metrics was sort of a good idea at the time. It was cloud-based. We just plug and play and set things up. It sounds really good in principle. And I mean, for the company at the time, we were able to get all the basic data that we needed. We had Aria, we were getting all our payment processing information in there. We had our Google Analytics just bring over web data, so we understood how many visitors are hitting our web page and how are they converting. We were using MongoDB to get some product data, and then MySQL to get the rest of it. And this really helped. It was a good start. However, as the company grew, and going into 2012, I think we're hitting around 100 employees now from 20. Our needs started to change. We as a company started off as a freemium business, so we were just worried about that sort of data set. But between 2011 and 2012, we started to go into this enterprise sales side, and that started to change things. And enterprise sales was growing quite rapidly. It was 10 times the size it was in 2011 to 2012. And so sales reporting was becoming really important to the organization, and RJ Metrics, for one, couldn't connect into Salesforce, and two, we were having all this issue with it not being able to keep up with our business. It was actually taking us in RJ Metrics over a day to load data in from the previous day. So you can imagine how that can build up and become an issue over time. So we knew we had to change. So in 2012, we went out and we said, okay, we have to grab another tool. We had sort of the similar problem we had back in 2011. We have no engineering talent to dedicate to this, and it's just going to be all analysts working on it. So they did some research, and they looked out, and they found a tool called Good Data. It seemed very similar to RJ Metrics, had raised a lot more money, and it seemed to have all the connectors that we needed in place, so we thought this would be a good idea. So in 2012, they purchased Good Data and began to implement it. And they thought, okay, let's get some quick wins out of that right now. So what they did was, instead of trying to migrate everything that was over in RJ Metrics into Good Data right away, they started to go after things like Salesforce and start satisfying the enterprise sales customers, which was not a bad idea at the time. I mean, to be honest, things started well. It was great. Everyone was happy. VP of Sales is happy. He finally has access to data he didn't have before other than what he could get in Salesforce. Our Chief Revenue Officer was loving it because now he had to go to two places, but at least he had answers to all of his revenue questions. But of course, we began to have issues. We began to have a lot of issues. As you can imagine, having two BI systems in place, sort of some things don't always go as well as you'd like. And this led to a lot of drivers for change. And just talking about sort of what was going on with that second BI tool with Good Data and RJ, the first issue we realized when we were trying to implement this was scalability. So at this time, it wasn't very feasible for analysts to actually work within that tool. They had some very complex ETL layers, and we had to have engineering talent. When we were building into it, we actually couldn't scale engineering to work on it. It was very limited what we could do. We added 2 engineers to work on it, but only one of them could do things at a time. And so suddenly we realized we weren't going to be able to scale the solution at all. We were just going to be constantly falling behind all the new requests we were having. If you go back to that slide of all that growth in users, just think of how much change there is in demand for data while that's happening. So we have all that compounding the situation. We had no flexibility with either solution that was in place. They had, in Good Data, it was a very rigorous data model to work with. And it took our engineers weeks at a time just to put together a new data set. And it was very likely that that might not work or it might break. And so it was causing us a lot of headaches. And of course, from a reliability standpoint of that, we would have that system break and we wouldn't know why. And we'd go through the logs, and for some reason, Czech Republic Daylight Savings Time broke it. I didn't even know that was a concern before I had that system. Just a note, when the dev team is in Czech Republic or another country, that could be a problem of ours. That's what happened to us. At this time, in this context, this would be late 2014. We'd spent over a year working on Good Data, trying to implement it. We were coming up to the end of our contract. So this is around, I think, 2 months when we were thinking about this. And we tried negotiating to sort of see if we could limit our contract terms so we can try to work on things. And we couldn't really work something out so we could make things work. So we decided at that time, it's time to look for something different. It's time to change things up. Let's do something new. So we went out and we laid out some criteria that we wanted to do for this change. The first one was infrastructure. As a rapidly growing company, security was becoming exceptionally important to us, and we needed to make sure that that infrastructure was within our control. Right now, both of those BI tools, Good Data and RJ Metrics, are hosted within their own clouds, and we did have some concerns about how well they were going to be able to manage and host all of our data and secure it. So infrastructure was a big part of us to have ownership on that. Data sources is another big thing for us. What can we connect to today? What will be coming out tomorrow? Sort of what was the wide variety? I mean, we already saw when we switched from RJ Metrics to Good Data, not having Salesforce connector was a big problem. And in fact, Good Data didn't have a MongoDB connector, so that was another problem. So we really wanted a tool that had a large variety of data source connectors we could leverage. Analysis is a big thing. RJ Metrics did not have a strong analysis ability. Good Data had a bit stronger, but it was super complicated for people to use. But we knew that whatever tool we had to have a lot of strong analysis because our data teams are very, most of them are stats majors or MBAs or PhD backgrounds. And so for them, they needed something that had a very heavy statistical analysis ability. So we were definitely measuring and making sure it had something like that. Display and visualization was also exceptionally important for us. Good Data and RJ Metrics were both extremely limited in what they could provide, and we were looking for something that would provide us way more options to move on that. And finally, we really wanted ownership of our extract transform layer. When we had all this complexity and issues with Good Data and RJ Metrics and the fact that we had to use all these third-party tools, which, by the way, had no version control. Think about that for a minute. It's painful, constantly crashing, not working. It was a headache. We needed to just fully own that whole ETL layer, and we were now willing to commit to resources to that. And at this time, we had actually committed engineering resources to work on this problem for the first time. So we decided to look at a couple of ideas and compare. And to give you an idea where we are at this point, I think this was mid-July. Our contract with Good Data ended end of August. And our CTO was just like, you're going to go out, you're going to choose something, just go make it work. And so he said, we should look at Tableau, and then we came up with a couple other things to sort of compare with. So we looked at Sisense and Chartio. To give you guys some comparison what those tools are, if you've ever looked at them, Sisense is similar to Tableau in the way that you can host it yourself, you can sort of build dashboards and stuff like that, but it's a little bit more limited in Tableau. And Chartio was a full sort of online sort of another tool sort of similar to Good Data and RJ, but that was included because we had a few stakeholders who were interested in it. So we decided to look at all three of them. So we spent these next 15 days sort of, assessing them through trials and stuff and sort of seeing how they were. But at the end of the day, it was straightforward across the board. We wanted to go to Tableau. When we looked at Sisense, it was really cool at first. It sort of was easy to use. And then we realized we were out of functionality within a day. It didn't have the heavy analysis and visualization capabilities we thought it had. So we knew that was going to work. Chartio, we had no clue how to actually do anything within it. And then lastly, Tableau was the easiest tool that we were able to work with, so very easy decision. And of course, while I'm speaking here at a conference talking about it, we implemented Tableau. So why? Why did we do it? Reiterating some of the stuff I've talked to already, but the first thing was, allowed us to own and host everything. Super important for us in this. We were able to we grabbed a Tableau server account, we now had full ownership of our data, and lastly, security. My VP of security was so happy when we heard we were doing this. The next thing was, the wide variety of data source connectors. I'm actually, by the way, super excited to see the web data connector that's coming out 9.1. Like, literally, the entire analyst team, jumped for joy once we heard about this, and, we're literally, punching our DevOps team to upgrade already. We were hammering them. But this was a huge important thing. We, of course, didn't know this back in 2014, but the wide variety of data source connections Tableau already had really made this project, or really made sort of moving towards Tableau really simple for us. I mean, MySQL, Hadoop, and Redshift were tools we were all using in-house. The Salesforce connector was a must-have, and it was just a really easy decision on that standpoint. Analysis, super huge for us moving forward on this. I mean, we haven't found another visualization tool that can do more heavier analysis without going into R or SPSS or something like that. And we do have a few people playing around with R, but still, at the end of the day, when you can give Tableau to so many different people from so many different backgrounds and they can build such usable analysis, it was just an easy choice. And the ability to use calculations and build on them and manage them effectively with Tableau was a huge win for us when we were doing this. And of course, Tableau charting and visualization, of course, super expansive. We were very happy with that. Although the only note, I don't know if anyone's from dev, but I'm really looking forward to changes on the dashboarding front, because when we were looking at SciSense and Tableau, SciSense was really quick and easy drag and drop, where Tableau was very painful at the time, trying to build this in a couple of weeks to make this happen. So looking forward to seeing some changes there. But in general, the ability to throw everything in dashboard was very strong. So let's talk about those 30 days now that we had left to making the switch to Tableau. And when we want to talk about this, the best way I think to start off with is something visual. I like to think of, when you're thinking about business intelligence, you're thinking about a big project, you sort of have an end goal in mind. And you sort of know a little bit what it's going to be like. I think it's sort of like kayaking. Today I'm going to jump in a kayak, I'm going to go down the water. I know there might be a couple times it gets a little rough, but in general, I know where I'm going. I know I'm going to have a good time. It's going to be exciting. For us, though, it was more like this. I didn't really have a kayak or anything. I didn't know where we were going. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to end up in 30 days. I probably looked that scared some days, so I think the whole team did, actually. So it was like that. So we're at like 30 days at this point, and we really had a lot of work to do. We still had all the ETLs to build out. We still had all the visualizations to build out, and our BI tool was literally turning off at the end of the month. Like, the one thing about our vendor turning off and it being web-based, it's gone. They were going to delete all of our data. We couldn't access it. There was sort of, we didn't really have any extra time to make this work. So we said, OK, let's go out there and let's do it. So we started with our ETLs. And the hardest one that we had to work with was ARIA. So ARIA is our billing and payment system. And it's one of the most important components for our freemium business, because every time someone signs up for a free account, they create an account in ARIA, and that tracks all their history of all their payments they make through us on the freemium side. So that was one of the first things we had to figure out, and it was painful, to say the least. In fact, most of our engineering team spent their time just on this data source. Is anyone here from ARIA? Perfect. OK. I don't like the tool. It was a nightmare to work with. It was painful being someone like I'm on BI team, and we're talking to them, and we're like, this is what we need to do. We just need you to query this data. And they're like, it's not possible. I mean, we literally had like conversations with them that took 3 weeks just to talk to their Oracle DB admin, and it was painful, to say the least. But we finally got that figured out. It took a long time. The engineers figured out a lot of transformation around that, because it's not just getting payment data out of there. We also had to transform that with all of our user data and anything else that we're tracking with them, so usage and everything like that. So when it came to Salesforce, this became my problem. I didn't have any resources to actually build out Salesforce ETLs. So I was sort of put into an interesting problem. However, when I was doing the trial, I actually was using the Salesforce connector the whole time. And I was able to reproduce roughly about 90% of the sales dashboards we had that was in our good data instance within Tableau using the connector. So we talked to our sales team, and they were OK with moving forward with that until we build up the ETLs following this project. So for us to complete this in 30 days, the Salesforce connector was a huge part of that. I know it's not the greatest, but in this use case, it actually worked out for us quite well. Product data. So this was a big part for us. We had a lot of product data in MySQL and MongoDB, and so we had to try and manipulate a little bit of that, move that in. That was a lot easier, because at first we were connecting it. However, we learned as we were going through the project that MySQL and Tableau don't love each other when there's a lot of data involved. And this is sort of what opened up this interesting opportunity to Redshift. So I was really fortunate that our engineers on the BI team were playing around with Redshift for fun. They had gone out and someone had bought it one day, or our CTO had got like a free account on it because he has some friends at Amazon. And we were starting to play around with it. And then I noticed the plugin, and I said, hey, let's give this a shot. Let's just try this out. And I was blown away by how fast everything was, because beforehand I was throwing Tableau into MySQL, and like it was trying to build extracts, live connections wouldn't work. It was just a nightmare. And then when we got in Redshift, I was just amazed how fast everything was running. And so actually what we ended up doing at this point is we changed a little bit in our architecture design. And what we did was we turned MySQL sort of into our development database. So all of our ETLs were built out using Python scripts, connecting to different data sources. Put it into MySQL as tables. We would do the transformation in MySQL. And then we would just use this S3 collector we had created that would then grab the data out of MySQL, push it up to S3, and then move it into Redshift as tables. And it worked quite effectively, actually. And then suddenly now we were able to just connect those all into Tableau, and then Tableau was running off Redshift just like it was nothing. It was great. So, server. Let's talk about server. As you guys can tell, I'm running a MacBook right now. At Hootsuite, all of our servers are running off Linux. The only guy who had Windows experience in our DevOps team was our VP. Everyone else hadn't used Windows in years. In fact, the engineer who I worked with on this project hadn't used Windows in over 13 years. He was 13 then. He was 26 when he was working on this project, to give you guys an idea. I wonder, think of the pain of that. When he looked at Windows Server, he didn't understand what it was. He was so used to working in Linux and terminal and everything like that, and he was just like, what is this? And he's like, I don't understand. Why is this so complex? And yeah, it was a very interesting experience. But lots of rebooting was an answer to most of our problems. In some cases, we had to up the power of the server a few times, but in general, we were able to figure a lot of that out. And the big support, or the big plus one I want to give out to this is the launch support team. We actually met with them quite a bit. They were great with getting us background stories and what people had done previously, some great use cases and best practices. And every time we had a question on the server, they were able to answer it. And because of them, I think we were a little bit better set up on the server around permissions and on our structure. We definitely weren't perfect the first time around, but we were able to get a lot of that stuff working really well, so we're pretty excited on that, and they helped us out. The last thing we had to worry about, of course, was Tableau dashboards. So we really needed to build these out now. That was the next big challenge. But the great thing that I love with Tableau, and I liked in this movement that we switched over to this tool, was this is the first time in Hootsuite's BI history we were able to work in parallel to our engineering team. So beforehand, it was I had to go into one of these cloud BI tools, someone had to build out the data layer and all of that stuff, and then when that was done, someone could build the actual reporting. But in this, we could grab a CSV export of just what the sample data was. We could then throw it into Tableau, build out the dashboards we needed, and then when we were ready, just change the connection. I was blown away at how effectively we were able to do this. And this optimization on time here, it was amazing for us. And still is. When we're working on a project now, the analyst team can actually come in much earlier into the process, work within the final sample data, and build something out before the actual Redshift connector or the Redshift tables are done. And so it just gives us some more flexibility when we're working on projects to allow us to sort of scale a bit faster. So it's very awesome. So this is how our sort of new architecture sort of looks at the end of this process. So we had sort of pumped in our ARIA payment data. We were sending in some of our basic Google Analytics data. We had been able to create connections to our MongoDB and to our Salesforce. And this is all just being done now through Python scripts that our engineering team had built out. We're using MySQL as sort of I keep pointing over here, by the way. Sorry. I'll point over here, too. We're using MySQL sort of as our dev database, as I was saying, and then we were using Redshift on Amazon, and then Tableau just connected to that. And this is still the system in place today. It's worked very effective for us. Now we're just playing around with more tweaks and stuff like that. To sort of talk about how, and by the way, we finished this with about a day to go before good data was going to turn off. And then we found out good data left it on for an extra day to see if we would stay, and we're like, no, we're good. We don't need you anymore. So anyways, this is sort of one of the quotes that got thrown around the office by senior leadership. But the data labs team, which was the team I was on at the time, moved what took 18 months to assemble in good data and moved it to Tableau in 3 weeks. And he was very nice. He said 3 weeks. But this was a huge success for us. I mean, the company had spent, we're going back to 2011, and we finished this in 2014. So that's 3 years where essentially we had, spent so much time trying to get RJ metrics to work, trying to get good data to work, and nothing. And then suddenly we had done this fast. This was such a win for us. It was unbelievable. It really felt like this, It was probably, I was there for almost 2 years at that point once we completed that. So that was awesome feeling. You spend all this time trying to build one tool, and then you take a couple weeks and you remove the tool you were hired to implement, and you implement this way faster. So super cool feeling when we did it. And this is sort of just giving you guys some numbers on how we sort of ended at the end there. So once we'd completed this, we had actually had about 90 users set up for our Tableau server. We had actually purchased 20 desktop Tableau licenses. We actually started with 10 at first, and then once we completed the project, we grabbed another 10. And we were averaging around 21 active users on a daily basis and about 61 users on a monthly basis. So we were very happy with the success on that. We were very fortunate that data for our business is a very interesting topic and everyone wants to be involved. So we have a lot of active users, which is super awesome. So at the end of this, we had about 35 workbooks and 150 views built. Granted, not all those are used on like a daily basis, but some are used on a daily, some on a weekly, some on a monthly, and a couple were just one-offs that were shared to external management and updated from time to time if they needed to be. So let's talk about some lessons, right? There's got to be something to learn from this. Let's start with building data source connections. So starting off, choose the right technology. Specifically, we learned really early on that MySQL wasn't a great choice, although, I mean, I saw those, the keynote at the beginning of the week, and it looked like maybe MySQL might be a bit better now, but still, definitely, I think connecting to the right technology is very important, depending on your use case. I mean, for us, a lot of the data we work with, I mean, Salesforce isn't too heavy, but you know, our product usage data and our like sort of member user data is in millions and millions and millions of rows. I mean, we have on usage data, we have about 10 million rows generated each day. So MySQL is not a very scalable solution to handle that. Redshift is, though. So knowing sort of what the use case is you're challenging and choosing the right thing ahead of time can save you some time. Oh yeah, so some of our transformations were very complex, and extracts took some time. We had some analysts sitting at their desks for like an hour waiting for an extract to build because there was so much data. And that was one of the reasons, too, we made that jump over to Redshift, because you know, they didn't have to worry about that anymore. Now they had a live connection. So it made it a lot easier for them to sort of go and work with that. Managing data sources on the server. We tried a few different ideas on how to manage data sources. First, they used to live within a specific team's project. And then we had a staging folder and a production folder. And then we've decided this is all wrong. Now we just throw all the data sources in one folder. And we usually give everyone pretty much universal access. We're not really worried about what access people have to data, because in general, the more that people can jump in and start using data, the better the company is going to be. We just want to leverage and free people up so they can actually make decisions and find value in data. So, well, also another reason we were doing this as well is we were actually having a lot of conflicts happening in permissioning once we move data sources around, and we can't move data sources once they're published, so it created a little bit of a nightmare for a while. So just in one place, that's all it is. It's much easier to manage. Around calculations, another reasons that we really wanted to leverage Redshift was Redshift can handle SQL queries and calculations just lightning fast. You know, we were doing some custom queries that we were sending over to Redshift, and what it was taking Tableau, if Tableau had to bring all the data over and then do the calculations in Tableau, could take Tableau 30, 45 minutes. If we had Redshift do the calculations and then just bring over whatever data we needed, it was taking Redshift like 3 seconds to handle the query, and then maybe 30 seconds to send the data over to Tableau. So, you know, if you can optimize that and let Tableau do what it does best and letting your database do what it does best, it can really speed up your time to dashboards and stuff. Permission management. We had a lot of fun with permission management in 8. It was a painful experience to say the least. When 9 came out, I was joyous of how easy it is to solve permission problems nowadays. Obviously, though, the easier you manage this, and I would say the least complex you make it, the easier you make your lives. Tableau has a lot of these little gotchas and stuff like that when it comes to permissions when you start creating lots of different groups and stuff like that. So the simpler you make a lot of that, the easier your life is going to be, and you can still manage that effectively. A big shout out to the community behind Tableau. I don't know how many of you are, you know, writing documents for Tableau or anything like that online or had to need it. For us to get this project done, being able to Google and get an answer to almost every one of our problems is amazing. Like it was surprising. And then whenever we couldn't answer a problem, we jumped on our reps, and they were very solid in bringing us and getting some people up in Vancouver to help us out with a couple things, and that was awesome. But I mean, in general, the community, amazing. I'm even coming to the Tableau conference in 2014, and again this year, I'm just blown away by how many people are using it, passionate about it, and like you can't beat that. You need a very strong community. It makes such a difference in this thing, and for Tableau for sure. Lastly, of course, executive support and getting champions. We had convinced all the major teams, through this project that the value of this really early on, but we had support from the chief technology officer, the chief revenue officer, and the CEO. Very powerful and very funny how simple things get when you have those three on board. The main technology leader, the main revenue leader, and the leader of the company. So we were able to just steamroll across everything here because of them. And I mean, I know for some of you, you're probably in larger organizations and you have other challenges, but definitely, I can't stress getting champions and getting executive support just makes such a difference in these projects. And they were a big part of helping us get this done. And just cut through all the BS what we're going through. So I've been rambling on for a while. What's actually changed in the last year? It says it's been past a year now. So here's our stats today. So just to give you guys an update, I think it was not that long ago, a couple months ago, I think, maybe a month and a half ago, we actually switched over to I think a 8-core license, which was really exciting. We had this, just before the 8-core license, I think we had about 140 interactors. We'd actually jumped over to 30 desktop, and we were like, hey, we want more people on this. So we switched to the site license, and within, I think, 2 or 3 weeks, we had added another 140 users onto the server. It was, once people heard the word, they could get a user account. They didn't need to get budget approval or something. It was just skyrocketing. So to give you an idea, that's like 30% of the company now has access. We're hoping to get that up to 50% of the company this year. We're averaging about 45 users on a daily basis. Mondays, of course, being the heaviest. Mondays, sometimes we get well over 60 users on there, getting all their sort of daily reports. And we're having about 185 users use it at least once a month. So we're pretty excited with those numbers, and we're hoping to get them up a lot higher. Dashboard-wise, we have 95 workbooks. I always feel like that's a lot, but a lot of people are using them for different reasons. And then we have about 307 views. So quite a bit of a jump from over a year now. We're pretty happy with that. So I've got a couple dashboards here. I'll sort of highlight. Unfortunately, I had to remove all the sensitive data, so I'll just explain all the good things. We're not public yet, so I don't have anything. I can't show too much, but I'll show you guys what I can. And we got a couple different good use cases here. And then I think after that, we should have plenty of time for questions and so on and so forth. So I'm going to start with online revenue. So online revenue, again, that's our team that manages our freemium side of the business. So they're worried about like users who are coming into users who are hitting our website. Are they signing up for free? Are they signing up for a trial? How are they converting through the flows? Are those trials becoming a paid pro trial? Are they churning out? What does that look like? So this is they actually have 4 main dashboards they build out. They have an acquisition dashboard, sort of looking at bringing people into Hootsuite. They have a conversion dashboard. How do those users convert into sort of paying users? They have a retention dashboard. How do we maintain those users and keep them using Hootsuite? And finally, have a monetization dashboard. What are the money? Show me the money. That sort of idea. So in this example here, I've actually got is our acquisition dashboard. So what they've done here, and this is looking at a ton of data, by the way. So this is combining like one table that's got like 15 million rows to another table that has 100 million rows to other tables that in our payment database, which I think are around 5 or 10 million rows. There's a lot of data that's getting like aggregated and played around with here. But essentially what they do is they've set these up on a day-to-day update, a week-over-week update, and a month-over-month update. And then they can sort of see how all these different parts of the business sort of change. In this example, we've got free signups, how many people were signing up for free. Pro trials are on there. I've also got a monthly versus annual pro trials and a gross new paying users. And then what we've done on the side here is because we didn't have all those great filtering options they introduced this week, they've created a dashboard filters here. These are actually like workbooks that they've just thrown on to help filter data on here. But they've done this also for our different businesses. So they can adjust, how far back do I want my data to go. They can then choose which market, depending on the regional leader you are, or if you want to see everything you can, or you can just focus on a specific country, which sometimes it's very interesting for us. Like we've had times where Brazil, for example, suddenly we have a spike in user signups, and we find out, oh, it's because we got maybe we got highlighted on the App Store there that day. So it's very good for them to be able to use this and leverage that. I have a marketing example for you. It does not look pretty at all, right? You guys probably were like, why am I showing this? So while I was on the data lab team, one of the most common things we would get was a request for a user list. I need all the users from this company. Or I need all the users from this country or from this region that have used the product in the last few days or signed up in this day. And then they would use that for different email marketing campaigns, or maybe they were setting up like a conference or an event going on. So they wanted to reach out to those users. So beforehand, this was a BI request, so they would send it in to us. And it would take us like 2 weeks to maybe get back to them, or longer depending what was in our queue. So we didn't like that was taking so long, and we thought that their problem was pretty common across the board. A lot of different teams were using it. So what we actually did was, this is a dashboard we've set up where they can actually go through and sort of create the criteria based on these filters for the actual user list they want. And so they can go through here and they can sort of adjust, what email domain they have. So for example, maybe they want to look at everyone from Tableau who's using it, and because they're going to come down to Seattle and talk to everyone from Tableau. Because maybe we don't have everyone on the CRM. They just want to make sure they have everyone. They can check what country they want. They can adjust our max plan ID, which we have 2 plan IDs there just for filtering capabilities, because we do some, I can go really technical on that, but just the different plan IDs that we use: enterprise, pro, free, that sort of thing. If they're in an organization, and then are they a new account, or are they an older account? And then, of course, there's also this bar at the bottom here. I don't know why I removed the data on top of it, is the ability to filter on how active they are. So anyways, they can do this, and then what happens is, in this sort of clear box there on top, it actually gives them a number of how many users are in that sort of criteria. And then they can sort of keep playing around with that, and this loads up really fast for them. And then, once they're happy with that number, or they're satisfied they have the list, they can just export the results. And within a couple minutes, they've now just churned through something like 30 or 40 million rows of data, and now they have the result. Although they'll still complain, because they tell me, like, man, this dashboard takes like 5 minutes to load. And I'm like, this used to take 2 weeks. Why are you complaining about 5 minutes? But anyways, this is very cool. It's used quite often by a lot of different teams internally, sales, marketing, et cetera. So we're very happy with this, even though it looks really silly. Let's talk enterprise sales now. I don't think I see my team. I don't see any of my team members here. I was going to give one of my team members, Chloe, credit if she was here. I guess I am, but she's not here. If you meet her, you can tell her I gave you credit. Anyways, this is a pipeline dashboard she threw together, and what this is using is snapshotted Salesforce data. And this was a big thing for our VP of sales, because what he wanted to do is he needed to understand, how does our pipeline look at the beginning of a quarter, and then how do we end? And then he needed to understand sort of like, how long is it taking to close these opportunities, what are the values of these opportunities, et cetera. And what he wanted to compare was quarter over quarter. So he could sort of look and go, okay, at this week, how am I doing compared to how I was doing last quarter, the quarter before? And so that's sort of what we've got going on here. And so each one of these different attributes here, or these different colors, are just like a point in the close cycle. Like, where are we? Are we close one? Are we maybe close to a deal? Are we maybe like still prospecting? Sort of where is that at? Or maybe we're close loss. And then what we've got here, I've sort of highlighted here, but when I highlight one of these data points, I've got it set up so that it tells me, hey, what stage is this opportunity in? How many days on average does this group sort of have of being around? What was the annualized amount USD, just in case a contract is longer than 12 months? And then percent of the annualized USD in the pipeline sort of existing there. And then we, of course, have the pipeline tools there. And that way, they could just go through this and monitor it. And then we have all the filters on the side, so it allows them to adjust by region, et cetera. This is a very powerful dashboard that our VP was wanting for a very long time. And because of this, he can now really compare how they're doing quarter over quarter. Are we doing well? No? Well, maybe he has to kick all the managers into gear. Gives them some visibility into that. Support. This is an NPS dashboard. There's no NPS scores on it. Anyways, this was something really cool. We started using a tool called Qualaroo, and we started using it in the product. We really wanted to start getting a solid NPS score, because we used to send these emails out, and it was just terrible. The people filling out the survey was very limited. So we actually used Qualaroo, and then what we wanted to do was actually build out a really solid Tableau report. And so this is one of those dashboards, and it's really cool for us, because you can sort of see up here, I've got first NPS score, and then by our different user types, our free users and our pro users. In those empty boxes would be our NPS score as an aggregate right now, number of responses we received so far in the last 30 days, and then we can sort of see that trend as it changes over time. So we even have a dip there in reds. That means in that week we might have gone negative over what we're used to. And then what we've also done is we have the top 30 sort of phrases used, and what we did was one of our engineers just sort of took he created a new aggregate table that sort of broke down some of the more common words, or took out all the common words and sort of just left all these words and sort of tied them back to an NPS score. So we could sort of visualize and sort of see, what are the people who are happy with us, what are they saying? And then in red, sort of what some of the things people are unhappy about. So someone highlighted difficult there in red, so just giving you an example. And then, of course, just in the map there, of course, just to sort of see the size of the circle is how many people filled out the survey, and then color just represents where they are in the NPS score. And then if you guys aren't familiar with NPS score, at the bottom there, we can have a score between negative 100 and a positive 100. And I don't know, it doesn't quite say there, but if you highlight over those, it sort of tells you what those ranges are. Okay, last dashboard. This is our product management dashboard. So what this is sort of set up to do for our product managers is they can sort of get just a high level of how many people are signing up and sort of getting into a product and getting into the product. So what we've done here is we sort of have metrics on the side there, which if you can see here, I've actually highlighted one of them. And it sort of tells you the definition of the metric. This is something new we started over a couple months ago, and it's very effective because it's not just product managers using this, it's a marketing team using this, it's sometimes the sales team is using this. Our CEO will come onto here, and sometimes he just wants to see what the definition is. He just wants to make sure it's correct. And then, of course, we then show the ranges of how this is doing over time, showing you a 13-week average, and then, of course, below, so we can sort of see the changes going on each week. So this is a very effective dashboard we've done with that. So I couldn't do this presentation, and we couldn't be talking about Tableau without the people who actually did it. I just want to highlight them really briefly. The analysts, of course, I don't have my data hat. I should have it with me. But all of them did a lot of hard work, as well as the data lab team who made all the ETLs and all that engineering stuff possible. So with that said and done, I appreciate your time listening to me rant on for, I don't know how long. I think it was like 45 minutes. It looks like we had, hey, 41 minutes. Still got time for questions. But I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. I'm totally free right now to ask questions. If you really want to go see Neil deGrasse Tyson and you just want to get your seat early, I don't blame you. He's really awesome. But otherwise, I'm more than happy right now to take as many questions as you like, or talk on the side, or you can tweet me. I think I have my dashboard on my screen too if you want to see it. So there you go. Thank you. Yes? Yes.
Are you having Redshift do more of the aggregation in advance, or is it just simply like Redshift is faster in query performance?
Yeah, so it does. So Redshift will, and so just to summarize the question, you're just asking if it's for using Redshift, no problem. If we're just using Redshift for just the querying side of it, or just also the aggregation side, right? Yeah, so on the Redshift side, we sort of just shift everything into there. So really, it's more on the query performance, I would say. That doesn't mean we won't try and adjust our queries, so it's aggregating a lot of that data before it goes into Tableau. But in general, any of the major transformation and stuff like that, if we want to, say, take a bunch of data on the MySQL side and move that to a larger table, will probably happen there. And then we'll shift that table over to Redshift. However, there is, from time to time, the work is done in Redshift if the job is just super large and involves a lot of data. Yes?
This may be it's not really. You have on your on the screen, you have the daily average users.
Yep.
The average users. Is that something that was provided on Tableau server? And like, cause I know you have some custom like dashboard data. We've not really looked at it, but I'm just kind of curious about that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I actually should have highlighted it more in the presentation, actually. That was something I did when I was bored one day. I had read that you could create a connector back into Tableau server. And then sort of just build data connectors. So that's what I did. I went onto the server, and Tableau server is running a Postgres database. So you can just grab Postgres connector on there, connect directly to it, and then just create the data sources, publish them to the server, and then I just jumped off the actual Windows server box and then just went back to my desktop, and I can now just query that data. And that's what we did. So I have a couple dashboards set up that actually highlight what's my monthly active users, what's my daily active users, and currently who's using it right now. So that's why sometimes I would log in and there'd be 80 users on a Monday morning trying to get all their data in before the go-to-market meetings.
So if I wanted to get more information from you and I did that,
yeah. I'll definitely help you look. I've actually found it by just Googling, actually, to be honest, but I'd be happy to find out where the heck I found it and we'll hook you up. Yeah, no problem. Yes, in the back.
Did you do any training for your Tableau server end users, or did you find what people could just figure out that based on their own?
We did do a basic training. So I did a lunch and learn that took maybe 20 minutes to go over for about a first 40 or 50 people. And then what we did too was, I didn't highlight it here, I totally forgot. But you know what was really useful is all that on-demand videos. Because I was able just to send everyone the on-demand video for Tableau server. And that onboards so many people so effectively. So if anyone has a question, I'm like, well, I can help you, but if you just watch this video for like 10 minutes, and granted, not everyone wants to watch a video for 10 minutes, but they can just jump on there and just get all the answers. And we have that linked on the Tableau server and everything like that. So it's been very effective just to send them that. And I find a lot of people, once they know the tools are available or the videos or content's available, they don't come to me to ask questions, they just go do it. That's been my experience anyways. Yes? Probably more requests for more data. So one of the first things we ended up doing, I think a few months after we successfully completed this, was the CFO grabbed me because he hosts an executive meeting. And the problem was their executive meeting was running out of a spreadsheet. And he hated it because he was the one owning it and managing it. So he just wanted us to sort of throw it in Tableau so everyone could use it. And we had to do some variations on that too, because the problem we always had with the executive level across the board was, I can't find the Excel spreadsheet, I can't find the Tableau page, and it took us a few weeks to sort of iterate and change on that, and then finally we had a really simple design that we set up for everyone, where just straightforward, just the key metrics they need to follow, and it was very successful, because the biggest problem the executives had was they're just too busy, and they needed something just really simple. And in fact, in that one, we tried to be really complex and have all this like data connected and stuff, and the easiest tool actually was for us just to have it built on an Excel file where we able to get all the data really easily and just have it set up there. I think we're trying to work into automating a lot of that right now, but at the time, that was the easiest, just because from quarter to quarter, the focus was changing sometimes. We're adding new products, and it was hard to sort of integrate all that as well. So that was probably the biggest thing that we saw with that, beyond what the other teams were requesting. And then my CEO is always constantly going, where do I get this answer? And why do I have to ask you to get this answer? We're like, okay, we'll spell it out more. Yes?
Do you have a central panel where the internal customers access the dashboards, or do you use the Tableau side of the
You mean internal customers, you mean like actual employees at Hootsuite, or do you mean like our actual users? So our users actually don't use Tableau. Our users actually, we have our own analytics. We actually bought an analytics company out of Europe because they had been doing social media analytics for the last 5-6 years. So that was a core competency that we needed to have. So that's the only reason why we didn't use something like Tableau. We had thought about it in the past, but we did raise some money, and that was a big competitive differentiation we wanted to do, and we thought it was easier to bring someone in who had already been doing it than for us to try and look at this and expanding on this. Did that answer your question? Okay. Yes?
For the ETL tool, why you chose to build in-house instead of buying existing products?
I think the biggest driver there was we're an engineering organization, so our CTO was pretty firm that we should own that. That should be our, we have the skill set to work with data. We are already working with, tons and tons of social media data. We should be able to figure that stuff out. And so it's a core competency for us to have that in-house. And we tried having third-party tools to sort of own that, and it was just decided that it put too much strain on those teams to sort of try and build out that way. And so now we have a straightforward engineering team that is doing all of this, and they actually work with our product teams and doing all the product data, as well as all the business intelligence for all the business-related data as well. So that was the reason why we did that versus going out and grabbing one of the many different tools here. I'm sure those tools are great. It was just for us, that was the main reason. By the way, if you want to leave, I don't take it personally. I always believe in the law of 2 feet. When you're not getting value, you can walk. I don't take it personally. But again, I'm here, so questions.
Was the company you worked for before
It may or may not have been, yes.
I worked for PowerX.
Oh, you work for PowerX? Yeah. Yeah, that is where I worked. So you probably have many good stories as well. Yeah. Yes? Yeah, so we started, when we were using good data, we started to try and do it then. It was supposed to run daily, actually. That was the granularity that our sales teams wanted. We actually found out a little while later that for some reason good data was actually truncating that data after a while. It was actually just taking, it would dump all the data other than Friday after I think 3 or 6 months, which we didn't know. That was an interesting day. Since we switched off to good data and we own the ETL now, we actually snapshot that every day. So it's a pretty heavy table now. There's a lot of data in there. However, I mean, the cost of warehousing is so cheap that for us, if it adds value for the sales team, we'll do it. It's not a problem there. However, I think it's just like any other thing. It's what do you need, and then just go with that. If you really need daily, sure. Daily was what we requested, and that's what we did. Cool. Well, I don't want to hold you guys up. I feel bad, but if you have questions, it's coming up. I'm happy to chat. I appreciate the time.